Should we feel bad, Arcand? Should I feel bad about quote-unquote pitting? I keep hearing this over and over again, that we've pitted Tatum and Brown against one another. I don't really think that's what we were doing, but I've heard it enough where I'll just go with it. Should I feel bad for pitting Tatum and Brown against one another now that they're about to win a championship? Should I feel bad for that?
No, nobody should. Nobody should feel bad about comparing any two players in the league ever, I don't think. I mean, this is what sports is all about. It's about conversations like this. It's about, who's better, who's bad. It's a competitive field that we're talking about, and it's a great problem to have if you have two superstars where there's a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue within your fan base about which one of your two superstars is the better superstar. That is a great problem to have, and the Celtics act like it's the worst thing in the world. Joe Mazzulla would rather skip church on Sunday than hear people compare these two guys. And it's just, to me, I hear that, and I wonder what they're so sensitive about. At this point, I think when they're on the verge of a championship and they're about to do this, there's going to be a lot of blah, you wanted to do, you wanted this, you wanted that, you compare these two and all that. And I just think that, they can celebrate however they want to. And if that's something that they use to sort of fuel their motivation, then great, good for them. Glad we were able to help. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome, Boston fans. We were happy to do it. But I think that that's not something anyone who talks about sports, either professionally or just in a bar room with their friends, should ever feel bad about, ever.
Mego?
I agree. Look, the Jayson and Jaylen, we said this before, the Jayson and Jaylen dynamic of the doubt about whether or not that partnership makes sense and can win together is purely born out of them not having won together. So I promise when they win, if it's tonight, if it's Monday, it's dead, okay? It's dead. I mean, I might still talk about, finals MVPs, right. But am I going to sit here and say, pit them against each other or split up the Jays or anything like that? No, it's dead and buried just like, zombie fupa. And it's not coming back. So do I feel bad? I don't think I have doubted them winning a championship together. Like, I've never sat there and said that you need to trade Jaylen or that there's a better dynamic or anything, but I've definitely sat there and questioned that. And as Arcand just said, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to question it. They hadn't won yet. So the questioning will be done because they won, but I'm not going to apologize for questioning the dynamic.
No, and so, right, we were just wondering, the whole reason it was born out was, can they win together? And I agree. When they win, that's done. We're not going to ask anymore, do they work together? Do they fit together? Can they play one another? Are they alongside one another? Are they too similar to one another? All that's dead. But the idea of, whose team it is and who's the best player on the team and who should be finals MVP, we're going to continue to do that thing. And if that's pitting them against each other, then I apologize, but I don't feel bad for that either. But I'll be wrong. Forever doubting that they could work together or trading Jaylen 8,000 times. I've done it so many times in his career. I'll be wrong about that. And I feel like I'm already wrong about the Jaylen thing. But the idea they could coexist and fit together, that'll be dead. That dies tonight. I think it's done tonight when they wrap it up. Steve is in Andover. Go ahead, Steve.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? I have a talk about Jayson Tatum. I know he's been receiving a lot of criticism lately, and also some people are praising him because he's done other things in the court. But is it possible that maybe we overrated him just a little bit? Maybe we should bring him down a rung on the ladder, because these numbers that he does have throughout the playoffs, these are great numbers for a good player, a very good player. But these are not numbers for an elite superstar. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was done. He was pausing. He gave me a Tom Curran pause there. So, real quick, let me give you his numbers. Because short answer, is it possible we overrated Tatum? Yes. So let me read you some numbers here from Tim Bontemps at ESPN. He says Friday's Game 4 will be Tatum's 112th career postseason game, which is the third most in NBA history by a player aged 26 or younger. That trails Tony Parker, 122, Kobe Bryant, 119. Kobe won 5. Parker won 3 or 4 would be my guess. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But those are guys who you're talking about, all-time champions. In the case of Kobe, you're talking about an all-time player. And guys who were on a lot of winning teams. 4 for Parker. 4, thank you. Tatum's 67 postseason victories before turning 27 or 4th all-time, behind Kobe, Tony Parker, and Magic Johnson. So this is the company he's in. Since being drafted in 2017, Tatum leads the league in playoff games, minutes, points, and free throws made. He's in the top 5 in rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and three-pointers made. Now, all of those are cumulative, and so he's played a lot of playoff games. Of course, those numbers are going to be high. Tatum is a league best plus 162 in this year's postseason. He leads Boston in points per game, 25.2, Rebounds, 10.1, and assists, 6.2. Boston has played 129 playoff games since the start of 16-17. That's the most without a title over an 8-game span in NBA history. He can put that to bed tonight. And so, I don't know. I read you all those numbers. Is it possible, Mego, we've overrated Tatum a little bit? And that I've overrated Tatum a little bit. I've said it can be his league. He's a top 5 player in the league. He's head and shoulders better than Jaylen Brown. And it turns out Jaylen's definitely closer to him than I thought. Is it possible we've overrated him a touch?
I'll only speak for myself. I've definitely underrated Jaylen Brown. I have come to terms with that weeks ago at this point. But with Jayson Tatum, some of the ways that we do talk about him, and I do this as well, you just said in giving out those stats, well, he's played in so many playoff games, and that accounts for part of it. He still, to me, is the cornerstone of the Celtics franchise today, the cornerstone of all these teams. There was a point where they wanted Kyrie to be the cornerstone, and Jayson Tatum was a young guy who was still figuring himself out in the NBA. I believe fully, wholeheartedly that once he wins these finals, he will have better playoff performances. He will have better finals performances. I think he'll be a different guy when he gets past finally winning one and getting over that feeling of losing in 2022. I really believe that. And so I don't think that I've overrated him, but I will say definitely underrated Jaylen. Like, I need to take full accountability for that.
Arkan?
I don't know. I mean, I think that with Brown, he was better last year. I mean, he had a better season last year than he did this year. So, you know, we all talked about sacrifice, and they all talked about how they had to sacrifice
regular
all
season
these things. Regular season,
yeah.
Of course. And, you know, in the playoffs, he's been better this year, I'd say. But that was his all-NBA season. That was the one that allowed him to get the Supermax contract. That was sort of his coming out party, I would say, in a lot of ways. And this year, he's elevated it a little bit. What's Jayson Tatum really elevated? He's plateaued about as high as you can possibly plateau without being an MVP. But is he elevated? I mean, that's a fair question. It seems like Jaylen Brown's still on the rise, whereas Tatum may have plateaued a little bit.
Yeah, and so, right. Is it, when I say have I overrated Tatum a little bit, I might have. I mean, I said it could be his league. I said he's way better than Brown, and the gap's not that big. So I definitely underrated Jaylen. It's possible that I personally have overrated Tatum a little bit as well. But he's a great, great player, and they're on the verge of winning their 18th championship and the first with Tatum and Brown. And I think it gets wrapped up tonight. What do you guys think? Is it over? Do you want it wrapped up tonight? Do you want it back in Boston? We're also asking at Jones and Mego on Twitter, if you want to vote there. A lot of you have already. Will this Celtics team be a dynasty? Are they going to follow through with more championships? You can vote.